You know, in Monsters, Inc., it was fur. We've got fur. I'm here to confirm we have fur. You know, then it would be Nemo. You know, we have underwater lighting and we can do subsurface scattering. And then
this is the always playful, much beloved animation director Brad Bird, the director behind animated classics like Ratatouille and The Iron Giant. And here he's explaining the technical difficulties facing probably his most incredible film.
With Incredibles, our whole film was constructed of things, all the things that computers were still bad at. They were bad at humans, they were bad at hair.
So, the computers were bad.
They were bad at cloth, they were bad at water, they were bad at fire.
Really bad. It was 2004, and while Pixar had quickly developed a reputation for pushing the boundaries in animation, Bird and his team took it one step further.
One of the challenges of the film was just the scope of it. We had a shot underwater, shots in a jungle, shots in a boring office cubicle, shots around the family dinner table, E's house, which is like Bauhaus meets Greek ruins. The variety of environments in this movie was enormous. I think that you can get a grasp of the number of different locations.
I hope you can get a grasp of the number of locations because Lord knows.
For reference, Monsters Inc. had 50 individual locations. The Incredibles had over 200. There was fire, there was water, wind, clothing, all the most annoying elements of 3D animation at the time.
This is a hobo suit, darling. You can't be seen in this.
We have something like 95 costume changes, and not just t-shirts, but suits and shirts and ties.
But The Incredibles presented one major problem that Pixar hadn't had to deal with before.
When they started to think about what it was going to take to do this film, one of the big issues was, oh man, we got humans. Now, the reason humans are tricky is you're one, I'm one, and all of a sudden we have expectations about how those humans are supposed to behave, how they're supposed to look, what their attributes are.
So the animation team did what they do best. They invented some specialized controls, some software commands that would let the characters do what they'd never done before.
We've got characters that got big hunkin' muscles. We got characters that have some mass. So when I start running, I want to be able to control that mass, finesse that mass, such that I can actually have a jiggle. So we started to look at what kind of jiggle controls we would have.
Having the actual material, the skin, feel organic and alive would allow us to get away with less of the minute detail.
We have characters that have supernatural arms, stretchy, movie, bendy kinds of things. Fundamentals of animation, but now customized for humans.
And despite all these technical limitations and how hard they were working,
you know, we were on the edge of failure the entire time we were making it.
Bird still implored his team not to take any shortcuts.
But you want everything to be believable. You want to believe that these are living things that have feelings and pasts.
For instance, in Monsters Inc., the animators gave Boo pigtails because it would be easier to animate and replicate. When they asked Bird whether they could do that on The Incredibles, he rejected the option, instead encouraging his animators to push themselves for the sake of the character.
And it's great that Violet's got her hair behind both her ears. She's ready for action now.
Yeah, that was the visual idea there and why having her hair work was such an issue. As a filmmaker, you're always looking for ways to say things visually. And having her hair start out in front of her face like something she's hiding behind, and then gradually get pushed back, and even having Mom push it back in the Cameron Miyazaki scenes was key to showing what's going on with her.
How are you doing that? I don't know. Whatever you do, don't stop.
This little story feeds into Bird's animation ethos and what he believes animation is truly capable of. Sure, the animation was groundbreaking and the technology they created helped shape many future films, Pixar and otherwise, but Bird was always fixated on trying to show that animation was for adults too.
And people keep saying, the animation genre. It's not a genre. A Western is a genre. Animation is an art form. And it can do any genre. You know, it could do a detective film, a cowboy film, a horror film, an R-rated film, or a kid's fairy tale. But it doesn't do one thing.
Free.
So how does Brad Bird use his animation to tell us about his characters? How does he create any depth? Well, first he comes up with a simple story.
What if you had a superhero who was not able to be a superhero and is a little older?
You know I'm retired from hero work.
As am I, Robert. yet here we are.
This is the bare bones of The Incredibles, a super family with superpowers that reflect their familial archetypes. Bob is meant to be the strong father, Helen the flexible mother, Violet the awkward teenager, Dash the energetic kid, and Jack the chaotic baby. So that's fun and leads to some exciting action scenes, but Bird did everything he could to emphasize that this was, first and foremost, a story about the characters.
And, you know, most superhero movies begin with the big whammo blammo thing. And I thought if we started in this kind of strange, you know, the film's kind of beat up and old, and we're looking at them in some kind of personal documentary sense, that it would put the emphasis on them being people.
This is Sean.
That's fine.
I mean, I can
The
break
fact
the
that they are talking about things that they think their future will involve. So Frozone is the ladies' man, even though we later see him as being married.
Where is my super suit?
Bob is talking about settling down, although later he has a problem with it. And Helen can't imagine settling down, and she turns out to make the transition very well.
So Bird takes time to slow down the story to flesh out his character's motivations, but that doesn't mean he shies away from the action too.
Brad has always said we have to have character-based action sequences, and a lot of Brad's discussions on 100 Mile Dash was let's just not do the cool thing, let's have that, but also, okay, this little kid is using his powers for the first time, what kind of stuff is he doing?
He discovers through it, you know, what he can do.
Right.
He doesn't know what he can do.
That's the point of the sequence, is that it's not just a chase sequence, it's a kid discovering that he can do a lot more than he thought he could do.
I'm alive!
And it's through action sequences like this that Bird communicates the message or the lesson of the film. Initially, the Pars are told to hide their abilities in the fear of being ostracized or arrested by society, but it isn't until they truly unleash their powers that they become the best and happiest version of themselves. So the message is pretty simple: embrace your true self, your talents, and you'll be the best you that you can be. But like any truly great movie, the discourse is a little more complicated than that.
Everyone's special, Dash. Which is another way of saying no one is.
While universal excellence is a touching sentiment and something I took away from the movie when I was 10 years old, the villain also makes some interesting counterpoints.
This is because I don't have powers, isn't it? Well, not every superhero has powers, you know. You can be super without them.
Syndrome is a non-super who desperately worshipped Mr. Incredible as a kid.
Well, I'm Incrediboy!
What? His special talent is his intelligence, and he designs technology to artificially replicate being a super. However, in a moment that contradicts the film's message, Mr. Incredible completely dismisses him.
Fly home, buddy.
He's seemingly not special enough, which then comes full circle when Syndrome returns as a real threat, forcing Bob to take notice.
Buddy?
My name is not Buddy!
The idea here is to have our villain be a little bit sympathetic. The roots of this problem go back. Bob made a mistake back then, not treating the kid with a little more grace.
So what the hell is the movie actually saying? Does Brad Bird really think that everyone's special, or is Syndrome actually right when he says,
and when everyone's super, no one will be.
Perhaps Bird is only celebrating the truly exceptional individuals amongst us.
Thank you, Mr. Incredible. You've done it again.
Yeah, you're the best.
No, I'm just
Well, this is definitely what his biggest critics think. Specifically, they equate his messages of individuality with the objectivism of author Ayn Rand. In extremely simple terms, Rand believed that the truly great amongst us should, as much as possible, not be shackled by law or conventions.
Right now, honey, the world just wants us to fit in, and to fit in, we just gotta be like everybody else.
Perfection should instead be celebrated and rewarded with the appropriate social advantages. This idea bleeds through to a lot of superhero content. Here, the world falls prey to an egomaniac when they outlaw supers.
It is time for their secret identity to become their only identity.
But are saved by the truly exceptional Parr family. So, unhampered excellence is the solution. And this same theme that society places unnecessary constraints on exceptional individuals crops up in a number of Bird's other films.
And the truth is, I have no talent at all.
Ratatouille, which projects a similarly positive message that anyone can cook, also emphasizes that if you don't have any talent, you should get out of the way of people who do. So here, and in the sequel, mind you, the fact that a non-super who harnesses their special skills is presented as the villain emphasizes Bird's Randian undertones.
You mean you killed off real heroes so that you could Pretend to be one?
But honestly, these criticisms seem to be forgetting one big detail.
Release me! Now!
Or what?
I'll crush her.
It was showing the blatant disregard syndrome has for life. And I feel like a lot of our villains in real life have. Oftentimes it's decorated as a higher calling, but it isn't.
Syndrome is objectively a bad guy. He has a special talent, but uses it for evil. The ideas of good, bad, and the morals of breaking unjust laws for the good are explored in more detail in the sequel, but Bird's movies always punish those who use unlimited power for their selfish purposes. All of his movies grapple with objectivist themes, that's undeniable.
You always say be true to yourself, but you never say which part of yourself to be true to.
But they don't conclude that doing what's best for the self is what's best for everybody. Instead, Bird seems to be promoting doing what's right, and what's right is what benefits the most people. The Parr family saved the city, Remy saves Alfredo's legacy and his family, and the Iron Giant trends from what makes him exceptional and would harm others to what makes him exceptional and would benefit others.
I promise I'll slow up. I'll only be the best by a tiny bit.
In summary, The Incredibles doesn't offer any easy answers because there aren't any. Building a society that benefits everybody gives everyone the same amount of freedom while also allowing people as much freedom as possible to exercise their unique talents is basically impossible.
Hey, we're superheroes. What could happen?
But it's cool to know that Brad Bird is constantly adding to this conversation with some entertaining and innovative films, and he's using his animation superpowers for good.
If I did what they were doing, I'd be going, hey, I just made a miracle happen. Come on, little respect here. But these guys are quiet, and they just, they make these films absolutely possible.
Edna mode. And guess.